So the Las Vegas Raiders drafted Charles Grant in the 3rd round, and there's a real chance this guy has the most potential among the offensive linemen in this class. Now, Charles Grant was a 3rd round pick, but if he was healthy enough to play in the Senior Bowl, he could have easily been a top 10 to 15 pick. And the Raiders have already announced this guy as an offensive tackle as opposed to a guard. And we're going to talk about what this guy brings. So one of the things you have to realize right away is the fact that the Las Vegas Raiders this season are going to be running a heavy dose of outside zone and wide zone. And we have to recognize that in order to have success running these schemes, you got to have the offensive linemen in place that can also execute these different schemes. So I want to talk a little bit about the zone scheme and talk about the responsibility of these offensive linemen when it comes to those type of zone plays, specifically when you're on the front side as an offensive tackle in an outside or wide zone concept. So on this one here, Charles Grant has 2 things he can do. He can either throw this defensive end outside, or he can essentially get in front of him and flip the hips. Now, in this instance, the defensive end's obviously keeping the outside containment. Charles Grant recognizes that, and look at him throw this guy out of the gap. And then as he throws him, look at the movement he continues to generate. To me, this is a part of why the Las Vegas Raiders wanted this guy. From a scheme fit perspective, the athletic profile that this guy has is absolutely incredible. And these are not one-time blocks. There's a ton of these on tape. Take this one here. You're going to get a split zone concept, which is an inside zone run. And look at Charles Grant take this defensive end and just straight up move him. And this one picks up 31 yards, and a big part of this is because of what Charles Grant does. I want you guys to think about this play. From what the defense has to do in order to shut this play down. Now, it's a split zone to the left, which means this run could theoretically bend back into one of these gaps depending on what happens on the front side. For example, if this defensive end here takes on Charles Grant, he shuts him down, right? He does not allow Charles Grant to generate movement. And let's assume the defensive tackle here also holds his ground, right? He sets the edge here. He does not allow this guard to generate movement. Well, what that means is when the running back gets the ball here, the gap from this point over here towards the right is just not going to be that wide. So the running back has to theoretically bend this back to the inside. This would be the way to technically shut this play down. But when a tackle can generate movement, that gap's going to widen. When these guards and centers can move guys 3, 4, 5, 6 yards out of the gap, that is going to theoretically widen the gap. Now here's the thing with inside zone. Majority of the time, inside zone does not hit exactly where the play is designed to hit. Usually you bend it to the inside. But when you have Charles Grant on the front side of an inside zone concept, he's going to move people out of there. He's going to generate push. He's going to generate movement. I think this is one of the key reasons the Raiders bring this guy in. The movement that he generates is really, really, really impressive. But to me, the biggest asset that this guy brings to the Las Vegas Raiders is going to be how he cuts players off, how he gets in front of guys. Whether he's reach blocking a 5 technique and trying to get in front of them, or he has a 3 technique where he's the backside seal, or maybe it's the run angle he has to take and get in front of a linebacker. The movement where this guy goes from point A to point B is absolutely elite, and there's just so many great examples on tape. Here's one where he does a phenomenal job. Now, the play ends up hitting to the left, but I want you guys to think about this concept. To me, the fact that if the quarterback just handed this ball off, I think this play picks up more than the 8 yards it picked up, which is still fairly good, but think about this play here. So this is going to be a triple option where the quarterback's going to end up keeping the football. But think about what happens within this play. Charles Grant has a 3 technique that he has to get in front of. And Charles Grant gets in front of this 3 technique. To me, this might be a touchdown right here. Now, to be fair, the read was the right read by the quarterback because the edge play here does end up jumping to the inside. But because of this block by Charles Grant, the left guard gets to the inside of the linebacker. You see these 2 guys essentially pushing their guys out towards the outside. I mean, the lane that exists right here is absolutely massive. So if the running back gets the ball, this might actually hit. When we focus in on just Charles Grant, you see the ability to reach block and get in front of these guys. That right there is absolutely incredible. To be able to get in front of a 3 technique and then flip the hips, this is going to be the best asset that this guy brings to the Las Vegas Raiders. And this is why, as an offensive tackle in the Chip Kelly scheme, you have to be able to move well. And there's not a better tackle in terms of movement than Charles Grant in this class. And if you guys have followed me, one of the things that I value very, very highly in an offensive tackle is movement. I think as an offensive tackle, you can always get stronger, but you can't generally get faster. You can't generally cut guys off like this. Think about this. This linebacker right here is lined up essentially over the guard. And for Charles Grant to have to reach him is very, very, very difficult. But he's going to be able to make this block. To me, just absolutely wild that any tackle can move like this. And again, I think this is part of why even the fact that this guy played at William & Mary, which is a very, very, very low-level college, even the fact that this guy played there, he was still a 3rd round pick, is kind of impressive, right? Obviously, if he went to the Senior Bowl and he had a great Senior Bowl, if he was able to be healthy for that specifically, he could have been a 1st round pick. He could have been arguably the best tackle in this class, or the first guy taken, right? Because that's what we kind of see in his tape. But again, the fact that he did not play, he did slip a little bit, but this was why he was valued so high. He has a guy lined up to the inside of him, essentially playing that 4-eye technique. So he has to not only cross this guy's face, he has to avoid making contact, and then with that, he also has to get up to that linebacker. So again, just a really, really, really good angle by Charles Grant. Gets to the block, flips the hips. The running back has that lane. So again, just a really nice job. This play is going to end up picking up about 12 yards. Just a really, really nice job by Grant. You got another one here. He's going to use what is called the side shuffle technique. He has a backside cutoff on this one as well. The D tackle actually does a pretty good job not allowing the reach block to happen, but I want to show you guys this play because I love the effort here by Grant. He does a really, really nice job sticking with his D tackle. So first and foremost, check the technique out. Look at the feet. He's going to essentially side shuffle. The feet are going to end up crossing. It's hard to see because of that pull that's kind of in the way right there. But he does a nice job being able to make contact with 67. And this is technically a win still for Charles Grant because he does get to the inside of 67. So because of the fact that Grant's on the inside of 67 right now, the running back could theoretically cut it back into this gap here. And that's created because of Grant. Now 67 continues to fight the block, but as he's going to fight this block here, notice how Charles Grant's going to essentially stick with 67. And he's going to do a really, really good job. You see him right about there. He's going to stick on the block. He's going to continue to block this guy 20 yards downfield as well. It's a really good job right there by Grant to be able to get out there and reach in front of this guy and then just kind of show that effort and stick with this block. I think Grant has really, really good movement, and that's probably something you'll see if you guys watch enough of this guy's tape. The way he pulls and gets out in front of guys, the way he's able to reach and potentially cut players off. You will definitely see a whole lot of that on his tape. This guy does a really, really good job within that. Another thing this guy does a pretty good job at is double teaming and passing guys off. I think one of the things in a specific heavy zone scheme is there's a lot of this happening, right? There's a lot of double teams and passing guys off. And here's a good example of that. So Grant has a 4-eye technique defensive lineman, which means he has a guy shaded to his inside. So as soon as a guy shades to your inside and you're running a wide zone or an outside zone concept, that guy has to be passed off to that guard. So Grant here is going to do a really good job with the hands. He's going to fork this guy up. You're going to see the left arm land the shoulder pad. He's going to lift this guy up with the right arm. He's going to pass it off to the guard. That right there's a really, really good job by Grant. Now, the defensive lineman does hold Grant's shoulder, so Grant's not able to cleanly pass it off. I'm not sure if the holding actually gets called. And maybe the guard can do a little bit of a better job within this play, but you see Grant do a nice job passing off 59. And he's trying to release to number 3, but again, he is getting held. You can definitely see the hold by that defensive lineman. But this is something this guy does a really, really good job at, right? Is double teaming, or in zone concepts specifically, you're essentially exchanging the man. Here it's going to be a power run concept where he's going to double team. Essentially, he has a block down on the 3 technique, and he sends this guy flying. I mean, to me, this is such a great job by Charles Grant. I love the technique on this one. He's going to do what is called the gallop technique. He's going to end up moving this defensive lineman out of there. The guard overtakes it. But honestly, Charles Grant just makes the block, right? The guard doesn't really have to do much on this one. And then with that, he's also going to climb up to the second level. And he does an okay job making contact with the linebacker. Right? The linebacker does end up giving up depth, right? He kind of backpedals like 2 yards to try to get over the top of Grant. Grant makes contact with him, and he's going to just kind of flip him, and he's going to try to just stick to the block and just drive this guy out of there. As an overall run blocker, I really like what Charles Grant has shown us up to this point. There's a lot of really good things with the traits, right? He is not a finished product, though, and I should just say that first and foremost. Although I think this guy has so much potential and he can be an all-pro caliber offensive tackle, he's not a finished product and he does have to develop. The technique's not perfect, so that is something he'll have to definitely develop when he comes to the Las Vegas Raiders. But I do want to go ahead and switch focus. I want to talk a little bit about this guy's pass blocking ability. You know, as a pass blocker, one of the things you're going to see from Charles Grant is he has really, really good movement. And of course, we see that in his run blocking. It definitely translates to pass blocking as well. You're going to see a ton of these type of plays where he basically gets his hands on these defensive linemen. And with that, he's able to just kind of stay right in front of them. They're not able to detach from the block. Again, he has good footwork, as we've already kind of talked about. He's smart when it comes to defensive line games. He sees things fairly quickly. And again, when you put all of those things together, it translates into plays like this. So on this play here, number 10, here's the linebacker. He's going to actually step up into the B gap, and he's going to end up kind of blitzing right before the ball gets snapped. And you're also going to run this defensive line game where 10's going to essentially go to the right. Number 92 is going to end up coming to the inside. And Charles Grant and the left guard here have to essentially swap. So Charles Grant's going to see it. He's going to pick up number 10. And notice how as Grant kind of makes contact with number 10, 10's going to try to spin off of this. All right, so initially 10's going to go to the inside. He's going to try to spin off of it. And Grant does a phenomenal job just kind of readjusting and getting right in front of this linebacker. To me, that's once again shows really, really good movement and footwork by Charles Grant to just kind of stay on top of it. So again, really nice rep right here. Let's go ahead and get to the next snap. Now, another thing Charles Grant does a really good job at outside the movement is anchoring down really, really heavy hands as he kind of gets his hands on these defensive linemen. There's so many examples like this where as guys are trying to go through them, it generally just does not work. And he does a really, really nice job anchoring down. Now, of course, to understand the level of competition he's playing at, and he's not playing against Georgia, he's not playing against Alabama. So it would be a little bit different, right? Assuming he's going up against guys like Nick Scorton or Mikael Williams or one of these other guys that may be a top, 45 pick or whatever. But do understand this is a good sign still regardless, right? Although these guys aren't necessarily, FBS level caliber players, they're still good football players, right? And you still see that this guy's dominating the competition that he is essentially going up against. Play in, play out. The guy does a phenomenal job as he kind of gets his hands on guys. He's able to shut it down. And I should also just kind of throw this out there. There is an element of pass pro that I think oftentimes people don't really think about. And it's essentially going to be play action passes, also referred to as jump sets by offensive linemen. It's essentially a play action, right? Anytime the offensive linemen jump out towards the defensive lineman, the way you see Grant doing here, you're kind of showing that this may be a run play, right? And that kind of sucks in these linebackers as well. Grant does a phenomenal job as a jump setter. And part of that also kind of goes hand to hand with the fact that this guy reach blocks really, really well. So I'm sure the scouting report on the other side for the defense is that if you have a specific gap and you're lined up across Charles Grant, you have to make sure you jump that gap because Grant is the type of guy that'll cut you off. So you have to be able to contain those run fits and stay within those gaps. You got to be quick. You got to be explosive. And with that, that also kind of benefits Grant, right? Because he knows that as a jump setter, he can kind of get these guys to commit to defending the run. And of course, it's an actual passing play. So defensive line will generally just be slower out of their stance, right? And of course, I think with the Raiders and the fact that I think they're going to run the football a lot this season, having a guy like Grant who's fast and quick, who jump sets really, really well, I think it's going to benefit the Raiders, right? So it will be an interesting season as we kind of get into it. I definitely do think that Charles Grant was a very solid pickup for the Las Vegas Raiders, but I do also understand that this guy did not play at the FBS level. So development's going to definitely be a real thing, right? It's one of those things where we're going to have to see this guy go up against Max Crosby and Michael Parsons, and we're going to have to see if this guy can kind of hold his own. And, I do think that he'll lose a little bit, especially early on in the process. Now, the technique is not perfect, so I do think that there'll be some issues from that element. But I do think that as he develops, paired with the traits that this guy has, there's just not a whole lot of guys that could potentially be better than this guy, right? The traits that this guy has is absolutely elite. And I think for a team like the Raiders, you're really hoping that the offensive line coach can bring in a guy like Charles Grant, can develop him a little bit with the hopes that he could turn into a guy that ends up being a really, really good football player. We've seen examples of offensive tackles like Jordan Mailata as an example. Even Colton Miller, and Colton Miller might not be a great example because he was like the 14th or 15th overall pick, but we had examples of guys that came out of college that were kind of raw, weren't very good, and they either stayed on the bench for a couple of seasons or they gave up 17 sacks in their first 2 seasons, only to develop by like year 3, 4, and 5 and end up becoming all pro caliber players. And I think for a guy like Grant, that'll kind of be the trajectory that he'll be on. He'll struggle a little bit early on, but I think as he develops, he's going to become a really, really good football player. You just don't get these type of players all that often. The way Charles Grant takes on guys, and this is a Coastal Carolina defensive end, and Coastal Carolina's a pretty good school, and Grant just straight up anchors down, right? You see the hand placement, you see how this guy's able to just move and get in front of this guy. The little adjustments within the pass pro as well. Right, he's going to end up getting into his vertical set, realizes the D-end's dropping off, And he's going to take on the D tackle, and then look at how he kind of fights to readjust the hands. All right, he's trying to get that right arm to the inside. It obviously ends up landing high. And then you just see him kind of just fight through it. Right, you see him try to snatch down the arm as well. Right, so this guy definitely does some of the things you want him to, but he will have to develop all of it as he gets into the NFL. The speed's a lot faster. Everybody's quicker and stronger, more physical. So it will be interesting to see what Charles Grant can kind of develop into. And I will also just end the video with this. Grant is 6'5". He has 35-inch arms. Like, this guy's massive. He has everything you want out of an NFL offensive tackle. It'll just come down to if he can fully develop. And if he can just kind of get used to that NFL speed. And if he can, this guy has so much upside to be a really, really good football player. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If this is the first time you're on this channel, do consider subscribing. A lot of you guys will know me as the guy that creates Raiders content. And this is my second channel where we cover the NFL, just kind of generally speaking. So subscribe if you're interested in NFL film type breakdowns where we cover some other teams as well. Thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time with another video.